5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to New Realities. I'm so happy to have my very good friend and probably one of the most informed experts on health and nutrition, probably in the world. He has the longest career I know, and he's really at the focal point of a lot of people understanding how to build their immune system, how to gain more vitality, how to wake up to the vital health we really need. And anything you might hear today, you can always find at Vital Health News. Call that number 888-275-7755. I am talking today, of course, to the one only Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Wallach.
Well, thank you, Alan. It's always a pleasure to be with you and your crew and your following.
Right.
Appreciate the ability to speak with everybody.
Yeah, I know it's been a while since we've had one of these shows, but I think, your information is in a way timeless. So what do we have now? Where do we stand? You've been talking about a building immune system. Where do you want to focus today?
Okay, well, let's start out where we're at with the COVID-19. And you have to appreciate that everybody's excited because the rate of new cases is going down. The rate of deaths is going down. And of course, we have to attribute that to the vaccinations, the success of the vaccinations. Vaccinations don't kill the viruses, bacteria, fungus, or yeast, but they alert your body and your immune system to bad DNA and RNA. So when the bug shows up, there's a bad guy. And so you send out the cavalry and the Marines, the white blood cells, the T lymphocytes, antibodies, red blood cells, platelets, go kill and eat the viruses. But there's other things that need to happen for that to happen. Okay, if you don't have these other things going, you're not going to have very good results from the vaccination. Your immune system has to be able to respond to that vaccination, which means you have to stay away from all the bad stuff so you can absorb the good stuff. Gluten, wheat, brown, rye, and oats will kill your intestines. The villi go away. You lose your ability to absorb nutrients. Gluten is a protein found in wheat, brown, rye, and oats, and it's bad. I'm going to give you a history of pandemics, if I may.
Yeah, no, that's well, I wouldn't say exciting, but that's actually what we need to hear. Yes. Yeah.
Let's go back over 2,000 years ago to when there was 8 pandemics, 8 years. There was pandemics 8 years in a row when Moses was trying to get the Hebrew slaves released from Egypt.
Right.
And let my people go, and the Pharaoh would laugh. You guys have been with me for 400 years. What are you talking about? Okay. Right. And on the 8th year, the Pharaoh's oldest son died from the plague. And so he finally let all the Hebrews go after 400 years of slavery. And I went back and I said, okay, what were the Hebrews doing for 400 years as slaves to the Egyptians? Were they mowing the grass? Were they doing the wash? Were they cooking? Were they babysitting? Were they cleaning the house? I mean, what they were doing? 99% of their effort was growing grain to feed the military, the Egyptian army, which was going throughout the world and taking over the world. And so I said, okay, well, what are they growing? Are they growing turnips and beets and carrots and grapes and making wine, or what are they doing? They were growing barley and wheat. Gluten alert, gluten alert, gluten alert.
Even back then, because some people say the gluten problem started when they were genetically modifying the foods.
Well, that's crapola. That's the hippies' brains at work. Okay. No.
Okay.
Wheat has never. See, when people are starving and you give them wheat and bread, and they're eating bread and they're doing good for a couple of years, everybody's happy.
Right.
But over time, those villi go away because the gluten is a protein. Okay, and it produces a substance called pro-inflammatory cytokines, which slowly over time kill the villi. Your intestines go away, and even if you're supplementing, you cannot absorb. You've done or observed surgeries and autopsies and things. The small intestine will look like a shag rug with all those finger-like villi and everything. A lot of surface area for absorption, but when the villi go away, it looks like a plastic tube. You've lost 98% of your absorptive surface, and if you're not supplementing, you're in trouble. Well, my doctor says I can get everything I need just by eating well. Well, that'd be like saying, don't waste your money on oil in your car.
Well,
Just
not
put,
only that, I want to just add when you're not getting the nutrients absorbed in the system, it's robbed from other parts of your body, your hair, your bones, your teeth, especially your bones. So it's like that's what creates your next, your big thesis on osteoporosis. But we'll get into that later.
okay, well, you've said the final thing. Okay. And
No, go
so
ahead.
every tissue in your body, as you say, bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, brain, kidneys, heart, liver, muscles, lungs, everything your thyroid requires nutrients on an hour by hour, day by day basis, because all the cells are dying of just, some of them only live for a couple hours, some only live a couple of days, some only live a couple of months. And so they have to be constantly repaired. And the doctors say, look, just eat well, you get everything you need, don't waste your money on vitamins, minerals. That'd be like somebody who loves their car, really wants to have it go 300,000 miles. They say, look, don't waste your money on oil right now. Don't waste your money on oil. Just put dirt from Texas in there. You can get that for $10 a quart at the store. There's bound to be some oil in it because that's dirt from Texas. Well, an insane person would not do that to their car. But when a doctor says you can get everything you need just by eating well, my doctor says I can get everything I need just by eating well. Well, you're a dead man walking, okay, if you believe that. And
Right.
So you do have to supplement with the 90 essential nutrients so your bone marrow works and makes red blood cells and white blood cells and platelets and antibodies. Also, your intestines can maintain themselves. This is why 3-year-olds, when they get the COVID virus, they might get a small temperature increase. They go from 98.6 body temperature to 99. Now you can't even class that as a fever. And they, for 3 to 5 days, they have common cold-like symptoms. And then after that, they have all the antibodies to protect themselves for the rest of their life against COVID. And it's over with for them. They're good to go for the rest of their life.
Right.
But when a 12-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 70-year-old who've been eating gluten all the time, like those Egyptian people, right? Those Egyptians and the Egyptian army. Okay, now here comes the rest of that Egyptian army story. Of course, then the Hebrews went off and started their own thing. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to appreciate...
the Hebrews were not eating barley and wheat, you're saying?
Okay, here's the deal. I guarantee you, here's what's happening. How did they fertilize thousands of acres of barley and wheat? They couldn't. They just grew so they were just getting whatever was in the soil there. But in their little gardens that they had for their little families, the slaves, okay, they're putting the wood ashes from their stoves and their fireplaces and their fire pits. And wood ashes or minerals, are putting those in their gardens, and they're doing great.
Oh, so their home gardens had the wood ash, the rest
of the fields. The fields that were growing the wheat and barley for the Egyptian soldiers weren't getting them. So they weren't getting the minerals. Plants only need 3 elements from the soil. They're good to go with 3 elements. So you're missing, you're missing 87 if you're just depending on what may or may not be in your food. Okay, so here we go. Now, the story appears to get better after a while because there's been plagues and pandemics. There was smallpox for 1,000 years. But then in 1797, Edward Jenner came along. He's a little country doctor in England, and he invented the process of vaccination. And within, a couple of weeks, he ended smallpox. You don't hear smallpox anymore because there's a vaccine for it since 1797. And then came, let's see, what was next? Next was the rabies outbreak in Russia. The Russians were dying by the hundreds a month from rabies. It's a terrible death. And Louis Pasteur, a French guy, he used Edward Jenner's technique to make a rabies vaccine, and he ended the rabies virus pandemic in Russia, in 1885.
Right.
Now here comes, I'm going to kind of skip a couple of things and come back to them, but let's keep going here. Yeah. In the 1950s, you're old enough to remember, what disease was plaguing kids and crippling kids in the 1950s?
That was the polio, wasn't it?
Polio, yes, very good. Okay. And then you're looking at, let's see here, Jonas Salk came out with the vaccine for polio, and that ended that.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's what they say, yes.
Yeah, about 1958. Now let's go back a little bit to 1918 and 1919, where the Spanish flu came along. And the Spanish flu was a big guy. And 1 month, in October of 1918, we lost dead in America, 97,000 people. In 2 years, we lost 657,000 dead. India, which we're going to get to in a minute, lost 20 million dead in 6 months. 20 million in 6 months. I mean, the bodies were stacking up in the street. They're throwing them in the rivers and damming up the rivers with all these bodies. And then they had 110 million infections in India at that time. And so it was really a crisis. Well, let's back up. How'd this start? Well, it started actually in, let's see here, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Monday, September 4th, 1882, on Pearl Street in New York City, on the bluff overlooking the construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, when Thomas Edison and Jonathan Leibs pulled the switch in the first commercial electric generating plant. Within 10 years' time, there was about 40 new diseases that nobody had ever seen before. And because that was the beginning of the darling of medicine, genetics, okay, they said, oh, these are new genetic diseases because of pollution and blah, blah, blah. And the hippies jumped on that. Everybody says pollution and blah, 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 blah. No, because when they switched over to electricity, there's no more wood ashes to put in the gardens, or for grandma to put in her stew or her soup. Okay. I didn't have electricity till I was 9 years old. Okay.
And that created the
deficiencies that created 50 new diseases.
But as far as your life, though, you had some problems up until you were 9 years old.
That is correct. Okay. Between 5 years, between age 4 and 9, 20 doctors were invited to try and take care of me because I was a very violent kid. I was very disruptive. Couldn't remember my own name. It was awful. 20 doctors. Okay, Alan. They didn't have a name for what I had because I'm, knocking down adults and kicking them in the head. And I'm very strong because I'm throwing bales of hay and stuff on the farm. And so finally, the 20th one was a little old lady doctor from St. Louis. Her name was Mary Jane Skeffington. I'll never forget her, like a little grandmother with gray hair. And she says, look, we're going to have to institutionalize him and experiment and see what we can do for him. But right now, he's too dangerous. He's going to kill himself or somebody else. We got to institutionalize him. So I turned around to my mom. I said, what does that mean? She says, well, they want to put you in a hospital. I said, well, how long am I going to be there? And she says, well, maybe for the rest of your life, because they can't figure out what you got. Okay, well, that night when everybody else went to sleep, I'm sitting on the end of the bed saying, well, this doesn't sound good to a 9-year-old kid, right? Right. Be in a hospital for the rest of my life. I said, okay, let me think about what's going on here. Nobody else in my family has this problem. All the animals that we feed from our garden don't have this problem. Now, wait a minute. Well, not only they're eating from our garden, but we're giving them vitamins and minerals, which I'm not getting. I'm 9 years old. So the next morning, I threw the Cheerios out to the chickens and filled my cereal bowl full of the alfalfa pellets, which had the vitamins and minerals in it, which were giving the lambs and the calves and the chickens and turkeys and stuff like that. And so I poured milk on it. And for 3 days, I was doing that. By the third day, I was cured. As God is my witness, I was cured. After 5 years of getting worse every minute, in 3 days, I was cured. And I didn't say anything to anybody. I was scared. Okay. And so in church, everybody's whispering and pointing because I was sitting there and singing out of the hymnal and doing everything every normal person is doing. I was totally different. And after about 2 months, this little old lady came up to me. She says, I hear you can cure my diabetes. And I said, ma'am, I'm only 9 years old. I didn't even know what diabetes is. And so that night I went home and I looked in the little reference book that we use for looking up diseases in our animals. Because, when you're a farmer, you do all the surgery on your animals yourself. You don't invite veterinarians to come out and castrate your calves. You do that yourself. You don't sew up fence wounds on your animals. You have a veterinarian come out. You do that yourself. And you also, if they have certain diseases and things, you go read the textbook and do what it says. Well, so I began to see, oh my gosh, in the animal industry, they know the answers to these problems. And that's where I came up. We're going to treat you like a dog, but you're going to get better. Okay. And so to make a long story short, I began my career in health when I was 9 years old as a result of that. And I knew that's the direction I had to go.
And you haven't stopped since. And of course, you developed the whole theory that most autoimmune diseases, all inherited diseases are not inherited or autoimmune. It's deficiencies. That is correct. And that's why I'm considered, along with Bruce Lipton, the two of us are considered the co-fathers of the science of epigenetics, which has replaced genetics. I have a book out by the name of Epigenetics. There's 2 CDs that go along with it. One of them was made by Bruce Lipton, the other one by me. And so that's available through your system. Okay, it's called Epigenetics. I also want to
And
say the way to supplement everything Doc is talking about is with the 90 essential ingredients that you can find at Vital Health Network. Call this number and just ask questions, ask what you need, see what Doc's whole company has to offer, right?
well, basically, we have a system here, Alan, where we deal with over, let's see here, 600 different diseases. And there are no such things as autoimmune diseases. When doctors say, oh, yeah, you have lupus, your body's attacking itself. You have rheumatoid arthritis, your body's attacking itself. You have psoriatic arthritis, your body's attacking itself. No. You have celiac disease, your body's attacking itself. No. You have all this kind of stuff going on. One of my favorites is atrial fibrillation. You have this terrible heart disease. We're going to anesthetize you, open up your chest, put a hot iron on your heart, and find the place your heart. It's not a heart problem. It's osteoporosis of the skull squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, which controls the rate and rhythm of the heart. They get it all wrong. It's not a heart deal. It's osteoporosis of the skull. And so these are the sort of things we do, and it's based on 32,000 autopsies that I've done. My thesis, Alan, is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. I'm very proud of that. And not to brag or anything, but
oh, you can brag. You can brag.
I don't want to brag, but just
You've
for
done
credibility.
a lot of hard work. You've been at it for 80 years. You can brag.
Okay, but yeah, well, Dr. Milan and I, we went to China and we did autopsies on 1,700 kids who had died of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. It's called Keishan disease in China. Okay, it's a deficiency of a single nutrient. And we came back, we sued the FDA in federal court, and April 16th, 2013, a federal judge couldn't go against 1,700 autopsies in kids. The results of that was published in 3 languages. And so this federal judge ruled that these nutrients had to be put into baby formulas like Enfamil and Similac, which only had 3 minerals in it. Okay, right. When mothers had to go make bullets and tanks during the Second World War, they came up with Enfamil and Similac because they couldn't breastfeed babies and make tanks. And so, but they only put 3 minerals in there. And from the Second World War until April 16, 2013, there were only 3 minerals in those baby formulas and got all these diseases. Now, by forcing them to put that in there, I have eliminated, now listen to me, I have eliminated a disease called cystic fibrosis, which is thought to be the consummate example of a genetically transmitted disease. I found the first non-human case when I was working at the Yerkes Primate Center for NASA, and found the first documented case of non-human cystic fibrosis, figured it out, brought it to them, and they fired me. They said, well, like, you're out of your mind. Everybody knows this is genetic. And they fired me. Well, that's when I went back to school and became a naturopathic physician. And then I was working with a Marine, working with a Marine.
I was going to mention the Jerry Lewis thing, but maybe
that's where I'm going to. Okay. Then after that one, we're working with a Marine by the name of Marvin Ropp in Utah and also Indiana and also Canada with muscular dystrophy because there's Amish communities, and because they ate so much wheat and barley and so forth, they're all farmers in these various areas. They had the highest rate of muscular dystrophy in the world. And Jerry Lewis had raised by that time $2 billion for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. We gave Jerry, he was one of my heroes. So we gave him about a dozen charts where doctors had signed off and said, we don't know why, but this kid, he's 31 years old now. He was born with muscular dystrophy. He doesn't have muscular dystrophy anymore. We don't know why these kids don't have muscular dystrophy anymore. So we gave about a dozen of these charts to Jerry Lewis from Utah, Indiana, and Canada. He got so excited, he contacted the doctors who had signed off on this. Is this real or is this a hoax? He said, no, this is real. So he takes it to the Muscular Dystrophy Association, getting ready for the next telethon here, right, for muscular dystrophy. And before he walks out the door, they fire him. That's what happened to Jerry Lewis in the telethon. You don't hear about Jerry Lewis since 2011. You didn't hear about him anymore. You didn't hear about the telethon anymore because it went down the tank when they fired him, because he brought them the cure, which they claimed they were after for 20 years. And when he brought it to them, they fired Jerry Lewis.
Well, why would they not be open to the cure if they got the answer of what they were looking for?
Because in their little pea brains, they thought it was a genetic disease, and they couldn't believe that you could prevent it and cure it with nutrition. Okay, wow. So it went against their belief system. So instead of saying, well, we got to check this out before we say anything, give us a month or so. But they didn't do that. They just fired him immediately. And so the Muscular Dystrophy Association tanked, And of course, 2 years later, Jerry Lewis died. And I'm assuming it was from a heart failure because he loved the kids so much, raised $2 billion for them. So you didn't hear anything more about that. Now here comes one of the greatest things. Now that was put into those minerals were put into the baby formulas April 16, 2013. Well, a year and a half later, we're talking about December 13th, 2014 now, headlines on the Charlotte Observer newspaper. I mean, we're talking like Third World War, nothing else on the front page except big headlines that said, we don't know why, but son of a death syndrome has vanished in the state of North Carolina. Then 3 months later, St. Louis Post-Dispatch and all the newspapers in Missouri said, we don't know why, but son of a death syndrome has vanished in the state of Missouri. Then 3 months later, every newspaper in the world came out and said, we don't know why, but son of a death syndrome diagnoses has dropped dramatically by 85 to 95%. And just a couple of weeks ago, okay, our CDC came out and said, back before 2011, okay, the rate of son of a death syndrome in America was 1 son of a death syndrome death per 300 normal births.
Wow.
Today it's 1 in 3,000.
Wow.
Because we put those nutrients in there. And son of a death syndrome, 98% of the babies that died of son of a death syndrome were in the crib. So I made them change the name to crib death.
Right.
2% of the babies were in bed with their mother, but their mothers didn't lay on them. They died from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease, Keyshawn disease in China. And these athletes are dying of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. It's a deficiency of a single mineral, okay? And you're getting all this stuff going on now with the COVID vaccine. Percentages of kids, young kids are getting hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart issues when they get the vaccine, okay? Well, that's because they haven't been supplementing. They're not getting that mineral. And just the stress of getting the vaccine and the immune system kicking in and everything, because they're deficient in that mineral, that process of being vaccinated is putting pressure on them. Well, they're deficient in that mineral. Well, fortunately, none of them have died, but they've been diagnosed with chest pain and everything, and they did EKGs, and they all have hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. So to make a long story short, I can give everybody 25 to 50 health for more years than they get. The human being has the ability to live to be 150, no problem. The average lifespan of an emergency room doctor, this just came out a couple of weeks ago, is 57. Why would you listen to anything they had to say about longevity? Their average lifespan is 57. And the average predicted longevity, okay, in humans in America is 75.5, and we can live to be 150. The doctors aren't doing a very good job. Okay, right. That's because they just say eat well.
But let's get back to what the been going on, because you said the people in India were yeah. Let's go there.
Okay, let's go to India. Okay, so I went back and I looked at India, since they had the highest rate of deaths in 1918 and 1919 in the Spanish flu. Okay, and I said, what's going on here? And so I looked, and I was shocked to find out they have 27 states. They have 29 states, 29 states and 7 territories in India. They're all a very homogenous people, all the same race, they're all the same religions and so forth. Very, very simple racial background. But they have, back then they had like 1.4 billion people. Today they have 1.7 billion people. And back then, why were they having so many deaths? Well, I wanted to know, was there a hot spot in India, or was it uniform all over India? Well, it turns out that 95% of the deaths, Alan, were in the top northern 9 states. Only 5% of the deaths were in the southern 20 states and 7 territories. 87% of the infections of the Spanish flu were in the northern 9 states, and only 13% were in the southern states. What's going on? I said, well, it's got to be a dietary thing. So I went back and I said, okay. And I went and I spent 3 weeks in the World Health Organization database and found out what each state was eating, what their crops were and everything. It turns out that the northern 9 states live on nothing but wheat, barley, rye, and oats. The southern 20 states and territories live on rice and sweet potatoes, beans, squash, and seaweed, because they're eating like Asians. Now, why were the 9 northern states eating wheat, barley, rye, and oats? And that's because for 100 years, the British were there drafting all their young people to put in their army to go around the world and fight in the world for the United Kingdom. So they didn't have to
Right.
send young British kids.
So why is there an upturn in the deaths in India now with the issue that's going on? They were fine for a while, used to report on that, and now there's been a shift. I want to ask you some challenging questions here, Doc.
Okay. Well, that's a very good question. And I asked the same question. Okay, why suddenly now has there been
Yes.
this big shift? Okay.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that they have a variant, okay, which is a little mutated form of the pandemic COVID-19 virus. But again, these spikes occurring in the 9 northern states, it's the same thing. Okay. Because initially, most of the infections were in the southern states. They only had 5% of the deaths there. Okay, it was very, very low. Only 13% of the infections. But once the infections moved up to the north, that's where it's going crazy, because they're still living like the people from the UK, because again, England occupied India, northern India, for 100 years.
Right.
Okay, and
Right.
introduced them to wheat, butter, and oats, which they grew. They lived up in the hills and the mountains, and they had cool weather, so they could do that. Unlike the ones in the south who lived in the swamps and the rainforests.
Why is the variant, though, more deadly to that northern population than just the COVID?
It isn't the variant.
Oh,
Doctors are pointing to variants. Okay, so they can say, well, we've got a vaccination for it, but this variant's popped up, and so now we have in this one city we have all this stuff. Well, no, that's because this one city they live on nothing but spaghetti because they're from a Italian background, gluten. Okay,
right.
Okay, and so they are not paying attention to that piece of it. Now let's look at one other thing. This is going to tell you the story here. This is the whole story. Let's compare a Latino country with a Asian country. Let's compare Japan with Mexico. They both have about 127 million people. Mm-hmm. These are yesterday's figures. Let's see, I get the right piece of paper here. Okay, here we go. No, I got the wrong piece of paper. Okay, here we go. Okay. The Mexicans, okay, and the Japanese have the same population, 127 million, and the Japanese have 11,248 dead. The Mexicans have 214,323 dead. Okay, 200,000 more dead than the Japanese. The Japanese have 667,159 infections. The Mexicans have 2,368,393 infections. So what's the difference? Well, Mexicans are eating, like Latinos, wheat, butter, and oats. The Japanese are eating rice, beans, squash, and seaweed. The Japanese can absorb nutrients. They're getting minerals from the seaweed, which make their bone marrow happy, which makes their immune system happy. Let's look at one. Let's look at Nigeria versus Brazil. Let's look at Nigeria versus Brazil. Nigeria versus Brazil, they both have, let's see here, they both have 208 million people. And Nigeria, let's see here, is 98% Black, which has the second highest rate percentage-wise of infections and deaths of COVID in the world, okay? But the Nigerians are 98% Black tribal African peoples, and they have 2,000 dead. They have 166.
They're eating traditionally without.
Well, see, they live in western, on the western shores of Africa. They're living like Asians. They live on maize, corn, rice, sweet potatoes, squash, beans, and seaweed.
Right.
They don't live like the Africans. Okay, they live like Asians, although they're Black, Native American tribal people.
Right.
Okay. Now let's look at the Brazilians, okay, which are 47% white Europeans. They come from like 5 different European countries 400 years ago when they discovered silver and gold there, and everybody flocked to Brazil and South America to get the gold and the silver. And then they have 47% mulattoes, which are biracial, half black, half white, and then 9% black. And they live like Europeans, wheat, brown, rye, and oats. Okay, compared to the Nigerians, which live like Asians. They live like Europeans, wheat, brown, rye, and oats. So the Brazilians have 450,026 dead versus Nigeria, 2,000 dead, 456,026 dead. Let's see here. Nigeria has 166,000 infections. Brazil has 16 million infections.
Wow. So you've convinced me and probably the listening audience that it is all diet related. If you're eating gluten, you're going to have a weakened immune system. Is that the essence?
Because you cannot absorb nutrition for your bone marrow, which is your immune system.
And
then,
because
and
you're
here's how it
missing
shows up.
You're missing the nutrients.
That's correct. Now here's how it shows up. And you know of people like this, Alan. They have to go to the doctor once a month to get an iron shot and a B12 shot because they're anemic. And the doctor had given them a prescription for B12 and iron. They took it for a couple of months and didn't help them. So, we got to give you a shot every month. Well, that didn't work either, okay, because their immune system's dead. And the doctor says, well, let's try giving you a transfusion from a normal, 20-year-old. And they give them a transfusion. Okay, so their platelets come up, their red blood cells come up, their white blood cells come up, but they have to keep giving them a transfusion every month because they're not making any on their own. So, well, the only thing left here is a bone marrow transplant, okay, because you have bone marrow dysplasia. Your bone marrow has turned into nothing but scar tissue and fat. You can't make your cells, your antibodies like you could or should. And so we're going to give you a bone marrow transplant. It's $100,000. Now, don't worry about it. Insurance will pay for it. And the guy goes home and says, son, you can go to college now. I have your tuition money in my hand. Okay, when all they have to do is get off of gluten, get on the 90, their bone marrow will come back in a couple of weeks, and they don't have to go through all this.
So you're saying it's that serious, and most doctors don't know the answer. So instead of just telling people to change their diet, they're doing these fancy procedures, which really doesn't help.
Well, when doctors go to high schools and junior colleges to recruit medical students, what do they tell these students what they're going to be doing as a doctor? What do they tell them they're going to be doing?
I don't know.
They say you're going to be managing disease. The medical system, they manage disease. Type 2 diabetes is a very simple nutritional deficiency. I can get rid of it in 2 weeks. I don't care if you've had it for 40 years. I can get rid of it in 2 weeks. Okay, it's by simple supplementation and changing your diet so you can absorb the nutrients. Now, you have to go to the doctor, say once every month for blood tests and all that kind of stuff, and take your insulin injections for 40 years. And the doctor gets paid for all that. Okay, he gets kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies. He gets paid by you going to him, and you get lab tests. So you pay $100 for an office visit, $200 for the lab work, and then you have to pay your money for your insulin and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, well, they tried, and I get them now. Alan, listen to this. I get them. They're 65, 68, 70 years old, and they'll call me and say, I just got diagnosed with diabetes. He says, now, well, before you answer me, I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Were you born with it? No, I didn't have diabetes all my life. I'm 70 years old now. Suddenly I got type 1 diabetes. So you need to change doctors. Your doctor's a liar and a thief and a con man, because type 1 diabetes is a birth defect, not a genetic birth defect, but the embryo, when it's making the beta cells for the islets of Langerhans and your embryonic pancreas, it requires certain nutrients, and it's not getting them, so you can't make those cells. And so you're born without enough insulin, and they take a blood sample from your umbilical cord when you're born to see if you have type 1 diabetes, because they make a lot of money from type 1 diabetics from the time they're born. So they want to find out as soon as you're born. Now, if you haven't had diabetes all your life, what did they give you? Metformin? Well, yeah, that's what they gave me, was metformin. It's an oral pharmaceutical for dealing with diabetes. And in 3 days' time, it didn't work. 5 days' time, it didn't work. A week, it didn't work. So the doctor says, look, let's try insulin. Come to the office. He gave me a shot of insulin. My blood sugar dropped in 30 seconds. He says, you got type 1 diabetes. No. The reason why the metformin didn't work, you've been eating gluten all your life. Your intestines are dead. Those villi are gone. You couldn't absorb not only nutrition, but you can't absorb the medication.
Well, Yeah, I mean, it's awful. There is a question here online. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah, Michael says, what does the doc think of enzymes to aid assimilation of food and nutrients?
Okay,
Enzymes.
well, enzymes digest things. Okay, enzymes can help break down proteins into amino acids. Enzymes can help break down carbohydrates into sugars, that kind of stuff. That's what enzymes do. They don't help absorb. They break down food into small pieces so you can absorb, but they don't directly enhance absorption. Enzymes have a very limited piece in your digestive program. First of all, you have to get the raw materials, all the right vitamins and minerals, okay? And then you have to stay away from the bad stuff, gluten. And then, I've been doing this now, 2 days from now, Alan, June 4th, I will have been taking the 90 essential nutrients for 74 years and gluten-free for 74 years.
Wow.
I'm 82 years old.
Yeah,
now.
Show them your bone density, okay, Doc?
Well,
there you go.
Okay, yeah. Listen, I don't have any pre-existing conditions. I don't have osteoporosis. I don't have arthritis. I don't have kidney failure. I don't have diabetes. I don't have anemia. I don't have thyroid issues. I don't have memory problems. I don't have dental problems. I don't have tinnitus ringing in my ears. I don't have hearing loss. I haven't lost my sense of taste or smell. I've never had Bell's palsy. I've never had trigeminal neuralgia. I don't have tachycardia, which is a fast heart rate. I don't have bradycardia, a slow heart rate. I don't have things like AFib. I don't have irregular heart rate, which is really osteoporosis of the skull, squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, which controls the rate and rhythm of the heart. AFib is not a heart disease. Any doctor who tells you that AFib is a heart disease needs to get their license taken away from them.
Right, right. So the famous book that you've written, of course, is Dead Doctors Don't Lie.
That's correct. And of course, we have the original audio cassette tape and CD by the same title. It's in 9 languages. We've sold over 600 million of the original audio cassette tape in 9 languages, 600 million copies. And the CD has sold more than that. Okay.
No, I'm just looking at another question here. They said, and I know what you know the answer is it wheat or is it the Roundup and junk that they put in wheat, the toxins, GMO?
Get over it. It's the wheat. Get over it, hippie. Okay. Yeah, they always want to blame something else. Well, I've been eating wheat all my life. How come I'm 70 years old and I'm first starting to have problems? Well, that's because it's not a switch on, switch off thing. It's slowly, the wheat and barley, rye, and oats damage your intestines by 0.25% every day. Okay. It's not like today you're good and tomorrow you're dead. That's not how it works. And so this is why kids, who are 3, 4, 5 years old, and they've only been eating, say, oatmeal for breakfast, and they might have a hot dog with a hot dog bun or something like that, but they're not eating spaghetti every night, and they're not eating pizza every day and all that kind of stuff. They're not eating French toast for breakfast. They're not drinking beer made from wheat. Okay, they're little kids. And so they do very well when they get the COVID or other bugs. But let's say they come from a Latino family. And the kid, from the time they're born and the mother's breastfeeding the baby, and they start eating solid food, all they eat is wheat, brown, and oats. Every food they eat, flour tortillas, okay, pizza crust, pan, bread, that kind of stuff, right? And so they, by the time they're 12, 13 years old, when they get the COVID, if they have asthma and all these other pre-existing conditions, which are just nutritional deficiencies, they're in trouble, okay? Right. These things are not, for instance, a jump to another one, which is thought to be an autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is just simple nutritional deficiency arthritis, the secondary infection with a bug called mycoplasma, which gives you the positive RA factor signal. But it is killable with an antibiotic called minocycline, like the bait fish, minocycline. Okay, right. So you take our healthy bone and joint pack, and then you throw in the minocycline, which requires a prescription. And within weeks, I don't care if you've had rheumatoid arthritis for 40 years, it goes away.
What do you think of people who talk about lactose intolerant and not eating milk products? Is that a deficiency too?
It can be. You have to appreciate that lactase is an enzyme produced, by the stomach. Also, you have some in your saliva. But
Right.
if you are not getting all the nutrients necessary for everything to work, including your glands and your stomach and your salivary glands and so forth, to make these enzymes, then you get these problems. Okay. Alan, tell me, what is the first food that all mammal vertebrates, and whales and elephants and giraffe
No,
and
mother's milk. Mother's
well,
milk.
duh. It's so bad that God made it the first food of every baby. Okay. Tell me about it. Okay.
All right. All right. I have another question here. Doc, this is from one of the viewers online. They
Well, you're
say,
looking, I have to wait a minute. While you're looking,
yes.
I have a third of a pint of gluten-free ice cream every night for dinner with my red wine. Okay, for dessert. I also, okay, I also eat cheese every day. Okay, and yogurt every day, gluten-free and sugar-free yogurt and cheese. People are insane.
All right. Well, they don't know what you know, but that's why you're here on the program telling people. This guy, Nixa, says there's only one substance clinically proven to extend human life, and that is the peptide epithalon, an extract of pig's pineal gland, or maybe our own pineal gland. What do you think about that? Extending
I'd call
human
it a pineal. Call it a pineal gland. Pineal gland sounds like something else. Okay.
pineal
Okay.
gland.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That is a very ignorant person. You need 90 essential nutrients for all of your cells, tissues, organs, and systems to function properly, to maintain and repair themselves. So anybody thinks you can just make your pineal gland happy and you're going to maximize, longevity, you're living in la la land.
But what is the other? You have other supplements that help with longevity on longevity. What are some of those?
Oh, okay. Well, we have 5,000 products. Okay. And one of the basic things that we have that's very important, which we have in all of our programs, is our plant-derived minerals. These plant-derived minerals come from the ocean. Okay. These are not ground up rocks. As the name implies, the plants have taken these rocks and sucked up these bits of rocks and converted them into a organically bound mineral. Okay. Now, here's the scary thing. I have to precede my remarks, give myself a little credibility here. In 2019, I was one of the featured speakers at Tesla's annual meeting.
Right.
Okay. My title of my speech, which is in their magazine that goes along with that 2019 event. My DVD, which has all my slides and everything, is a 1-hour presentation, is available through Tesla as well as that magazine. My thesis or my presentation was called A Prescription for Mother Earth. Now, here's why we're having all these problems. Okay. Not because of pollution. That's why my thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute, because I show there were no deaths from pollution.
But pollution is not good for us.
That's correct. But it only occurs very locally in one place here, there, and the other. It's not wiping out the world. It's not the reason why. Okay. When you're talking about fossil fuels being the cause of the carbon dioxide.
Yes,
no, that's a lie. When everybody on Earth owns a Tesla car, guess what? The carbon dioxide in the air is going to spike even worse.
Why is that?
That's the ultimate question.
Yeah.
And that's because, and I asked that question. I'm a pathologist. I said, okay, if it's not fossil fuels causing the carbon dioxide to go up, what is causing the carbon dioxide to go up in our atmosphere? Well, it turns out, ironically, it's hydroelectric plants that are designed to produce electricity. We have 1 million hydroelectric dams damming up all the rivers of the world to make electricity. Some rivers have 2 or 3 of those dams. Then we have 2 million dams damming up these big rivers for water conservation and irrigation. Then we have 400 million farm ponds, which intercept these little creeks and things, before they get into the tributaries to go into the big rivers, okay? And we've cut off the food supply to the ocean. So what is the food supply to the ocean that's been there for billions of years before man came along? Man didn't come along until 3 billion years after the formation of the universe, which was 13 billion years ago. Okay. And so all those billions of years, what was feeding the ocean? Silt.
Oh, right.
Okay. All of the oceans were fed by the silt coming out of the mountains. And you look at the blue zones, that gives you a hint. 4 of the 5 blue zones are volcanic islands.
Right. The blue zones are where people live the longest.
Well, not necessarily, but what they do is they have, Dan Buettner said, these are the ones that have the highest percentage of 100-year-olds in their population. They don't live the longest, okay? 4 of the 5, we're talking about Okinawa, okay? We're talking about a volcanic island for Greece and also for Italy. And then also in Central America, there's one, Costa Rica, and then the Nicoyan Peninsula. They're all volcanic islands and peninsulas. So they have all this volcanic ash with all these minerals, okay? And so when they grow their food there, and they burn wood, there are plants growing there, they suck up all these minerals. They're surrounded by everything they eat and drink. It has all these minerals in it. Now, the other
minerals are the key to longevity, not enzymes. Would you say enzymes?
Your body makes enzymes when you give your body minerals.
Oh, we need the minerals as much as possible.
So that your pancreas and your liver and your intestines and your stomach can make enzymes.
Yes.
So your salivary glands can make them. They need raw materials to do that.
I lost you there, Doc.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense now?
Absolutely. Yes, it totally makes sense. Yes. Can you hear me, Doc?
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay, good.
Then,
sorry.
One last piece.
Yeah.
The fifth of the blue zones of Dan Buettner fame, 2005, is the Seventh-day Adventists from Loma Linda, California. They're very strict on avoiding all the bad foods. Very good. But they're also very strict on taking the 90 essential nutrients. It's their religion, is to take those 90 essential nutrients.
Why did the silt in the ocean stop? What was that from?
Dams.
Oh, dams.
I'm coming up with another book. It's called The Damn Dams, is the book.
That's right. So the dams are killing the oceans because
they're
not
cut off the food supply, so the algae cannot do its job. Now, here I did a little research. I looked up the research of PhD, doctorate marine biologists, 5 of them that had looked at what is it that the algae eats to do their job. 3/5 of the Earth's plant life occur in the oceans. 3/5 of the Earth's plant life occurs in the oceans, not on dry land. Okay. Right. So when you cut off the food supply to 3/5 of the Earth's plants, you cut off an enormous ability to drop the carbon dioxide because the plants can't eat the carbon dioxide. They require 17 minerals for the process, 17 minerals specifically for the process to break down this carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and make carbohydrates and sugars and fiber materials and carbon chains and amino acids, all this kind of stuff, which they make from the carbon. But if any one of those 17 minerals is significantly low, down by, say, 50% or more, or if it's totally missing, they can't do it. And that's where we're at. We've cut off the food supply to the ocean. The algae cannot do its job. And so that's why the carbon dioxide is going up. It's not fossil fuels. Get over it.
What is the answer? We can't get rid of the dams at this point. Too many people rely on that
Supplement. Okay. Supplement with a Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. That's our biggest hammer in our toolbox, a Healthy Brain and Heart Pack. You also need to throw in a couple of other things. Our MSM, which helps support and promote maintenance repair of cartilage, ligaments, tendons, connective tissue, disc between the vertebrae, bone, breaks bone itself. And then, Alan, we have secret sauces for over 600 different diseases. You know, some people have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 different diseases. Boy, you got bad genes in your family. Yeah, my family has the same thing. Okay, well, that's because they're not getting their nutrition for their cells to make all those cells and repair them and everything. And so that's why Dr. Milan and I came up with the several books. One of them is called Immortality, and there's a CD that goes along with it, Immortality, and a CD that goes along with it. What all the long-lived people do
Yeah. What's the key to immortality then? You're saying
90
this
essential nutrients. 90
90
essential nutrients
essential
and stay away from wheat, barley, rye, oats. And then we came up with black gene lies. There are no genetic diseases in the black people. Everybody in the
or in any people for that matter,
yeah,
not
but
just
that's right. But you have to appreciate the second largest percentage of deaths and infections with the COVID in the black community.
and
It's
why
not a
was
genetic
that?
thing, because they just live on nothing but wheat, barley, rye, and oats.
Most people, yeah, right. Well, most Americans in general live on that, right?
Well, that's why we have the greatest number of deaths and infections in the world from COVID.
Because we live on
Wheat,
gluten,
barley, rye, and oats. The
wheat.
breakfast of champions, Wheaties.
Are oats as bad as wheat? Isn't wheat worse?
They're worse.
Oats are worse.
There are no such things as gluten-free oats. The gluten in oats is called gliadin. And I can say, I'm not going to shoot you with a bullet. I'm just going to shoot you with a projectile, so you're safe.
So I've seen health food stores that sell gluten-free oats. They're saying that right on the package.
Well, as soon as I grow up, I'm going to start suing all these people, okay? Because they're killing people as sure as they're shooting them in the head. There are no such things as gluten-free oats.
So deficiencies of minerals and vitamin happen in many different ways: osteoporosis, or autoimmune, or genetically, or what they're calling
that's what they're calling genetic disease,
right?
right?
What they're calling it. So you really have the answer. Would you say you have the answer, let's say, to disease or to
well, yeah. Well, that's why my thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute of National Treasure, because I proved in 20,000 autopsies, Alan, there are no such things as genetically caused birth defects. There are no such things as genetically caused diseases. Okay, there are no autoimmune diseases. And when W.B. Saunders, which is the biggest, or at least it was, I haven't kept track of them, but at that time in 1977, they were the biggest medical textbook publisher in the world. And so they bought the rights to my thesis, okay, when it became a national treasure. They published 30,000 initially, okay? And it was a 5,000-page thesis. They edited it down to 1,200 pages. So they didn't have to make it 3 books. They made it 1 book, 1,200 pages. And it sold for $25,000 each.
That's what your thesis sold for, $25,000
each. Yeah.
Why don't we print a book out of that and sell it?
Well, we did. We do have the book. Now, I want you to, when we hang up here in a few minutes, I want you to go to Siri or Amazon and say, are there any of Dr. Wallach's book? And they entitled it The Diseases of Exotic Animals, because 75% of the autopsies were in zoo animals, because I was supposed to find a species of animals that was going to be the canary in the mine for pollution. That was the whole purpose of my thesis, $25 million. Okay, they gave me. Okay, so I was supposed to find a species of zoo animals that would, when they died, you knew there was a pollution problem, like a canary down in the mine. The miners knew to get out. We would evacuate the cities if those animals began to die in the zoos. That was the whole purpose of my thesis.
Right.
So to make a long story short, so they called it The Disease of Exotic Animals. And so you can go to Siri and say, or Amazon, say, are there any of Dr. Wallach's book, The Diseases of Exotic Animals, available for sale? And it'll pop right up. Now, initially, they'll show you the cheapest one, which is beat up. The dog is peed on it. The cover is ripped off, and a lot of markings in the borders and dog ear and all that kind of stuff. They sell for $4,500. But right underneath the picture of that dark blue cover, Disease of Exotic Animals, other options. Punch the other options button and say, in fair condition, it's $6,000 to $10,000.
Right.
In good condition, okay, it's $8,000 to $12,000. And brand new, still in the box, still in the plastic wrapper, never been opened, $25,000 to $35,000.
Well, I think we should print that out. You probably have some valuable secrets in there that you're giving us here. But one more question online that someone asked about: what about the whole acid alkaline balance in food and all that? What do you think of that?
Well, that's what your stomach is for. Okay, everything in your stomach should be acid. Okay, you don't want alkaline stuff in your stomach. You want alkaline in your intestines. That's a whole different story. Okay, and so you give your body all the raw materials it needs. we have a wonderful in longevity, a pink Himalayan salt. When the oceans went away and the Himalayan mountains, all the minerals that were in the oceans as well as the salt settled. And so we got a what do you call it? We have our hands on that. We have a contract that nobody else can get it. Okay, it's called pink Himalayan salt. It's in our savor division, our spice division. I take a teaspoon or pink Himalayan salt. Been doing it, oh gosh, for 50 years now, with every meal. Okay, because you need salt. When in the old Bible, Alan, when somebody was really, really a good person and helped their community, they were called the what of the earth?
Salt of the earth. Yes.
Okay. Do you think God thinks that salt is bad?
No, I think salt is good. You can overdo it, of course, and create hypertension.
Yeah, you can overdo oxygen. You can overdo water. You can overdo anything, right? You can overdo exercise. So don't give me that crap warning people about salt.
No, I think we need the minerals in salt. No, Doc, I think you're doing a great service to the world and humanity. You are on top of all the current issues. Your books are very important and vital, and I always appreciate you spending time. We'll pick up this call in a week or a couple of weeks and get people's questions ready.
We'll give out your number again. Let people call you and get the books. They can get the products.
Yeah, right.
Remember, we got 5,000 products for over 600 different diseases.
Yeah, go to Vital Health News. Let me see, where is that Vital Health News? Wait, let me go to Vital Health News right here and just ask online for, call them, see what products might be good for you. There's some really qualified people taking calls at this number. So you can ask about the 9 essential nutrients, healthy gut. Is it the healthy brain and heart pack, right? That's
that's our big hammer in the toolbox right now.
Okay.
Because you want to stay away from the bad stuff, do the big nutrition thing, because the reason why we talked about all these different pandemics and COVIDs for thousands of years, because as the COVID-19 is dropping away, guess what? Within 6 months to 3 years, there'll be another one come. I promise you.
But why are they coming?
Because people keep eating wheat, barley, rye, and oats and avoiding salt and listening to their doctor, not taking supplements.
Right. So supplements, or if you could live in the blue zones, if you could put wood ash in your fire, on your food, would that help?
That'll help. But see, you have to appreciate the nutritional minerals do not occur in a uniform blank around the crust of the earth. So some wood ashes only have 3 minerals. Right. That's why there's blue zones. Okay. So you want to be a super centenarian. You want to live well beyond 110. You want to live to be 150, 160 is where you want to go. And so you have to take all 90 essential nutrients. You have to avoid all the bad stuff. No fried foods, no processed meats, no oils, no glutens, no wheat, no barley, rye, no oats, no sugar, no carbonated drinks. Even the dietary carbonated drinks are bad.
Well, what is carbonated? I'm just curious, but I'm going to wrap up here. Why is carbonated drinks bad for you?
Because it neutralizes your stomach acid, and you can't break down food. You can't absorb nutrition without stomach acid. Duh.
Oh, well, so people should never drink a carbonated drink.
Let me ask you a question. You have gray hair, don't you?
I guess.
Okay, now listen to me. Do you have any varicose veins in your legs?
No, I don't, because I work
out. Any
spider
veins?
No, I don't think so. No.
Did you ever have any hemorrhoids?
I could have one.
Yeah, okay. So these have nothing to do with age.
Right.
White hair, varicose veins, hemorrhoids are a nutritional deficiency. I'm going to end with one quick story here.
Okay.
You remember a guy by the name of Michael Jackson?
I do remember him. Everyone remembers.
Black entertainer. Yeah, everybody loved him. He was a great entertainer. By the time he was 6 years old, he was an entertainer.
Yes.
Jackson. By the time he was 12, had snow white hair. His dark black skin had turned snow white like typing paper.
Well, he bleached his skin, I think, was what happened.
No, listen to me.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Have you ever heard of vitiligo? It's the inability to make melanin, the inability to make black skin pigment. And you see black people with little white spots all over them, little beige spots all over them. That's vitiligo.
That's a nutritional deficiency?
Yes. But doctors tell them it's a genetic thing. They told Michael Jackson and his family, listen, this is a genetic thing. There's nothing you can do about it. You got to wear wigs, you got to wear gloves. And so he wore all these bejeweled gloves. He wore garish makeups, and everybody thought that was all part of his entertainment thing. And he died at age 51 from a ruptured aortic aneurysm. Because ruptured aneurysms in your brain and ruptured aneurysms in your aorta are due to the same deficiency as white hair.
But I thought that was from, I thought he died from injections that he was getting to pump himself up.
No.
All right.
He died of a ruptured aortic aneurysm.
So from deficiencies in minerals.
That's correct. And if his doctor would have given him those minerals when he was 12, he'd still be alive today. Okay, but instead he said it's a genetic thing. There's nothing we can do about it. Just cover it up with makeup and gloves and bejeweled gloves. And that was his trademark, was his bejeweled gloves and all this garish makeup and everything. Because he didn't want people to see his snow white skin.
So the key is get those minerals, get those 90 essential vitamins and minerals.
That's correct.
The key. This is like the bottom line. If people,
and avoid the bad stuff. Avoid the bad stuff. Eat like an Asian. Eat like an Asian.
More rice. More rice. Less
rice.
wheat.
Sweet potatoes, beans, squash, maize, corn. Can't be fried corn. Can't be fried rice. I eat 3 big ice cream scoops full of wild rice every morning for breakfast, along with my smoked Alaska sockeye salmon. I also have 3 eggs with soft yolks every morning.
Well, that's the other thing you stay away from. Oils, mostly, cooking with oil, right?
Soft boiled, not cooked in oil. No oils, no salad dressings.
No oils at all. Oils.
No oils.
No
oils. Just shoot yourself in the head. It's cheaper, and also you don't have to suffer so long.
Doc, you are a wealth of information and quite a radical nutritionist.
The kindest thing you could say.
Yeah. No, you're a great asset to this community, and thank you for all your hard work for 70 years in helping people with their, health and vitality.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks
thank you for all you do.
Well,
I appreciate everything you do. Everybody loves you. So let's keep going.
We are going. Okay. So you'll be back in a couple of weeks, and keep your questions coming.
Now, if you do everything I tell you to do, your hair color will come back to when the time you were 18 years old.
All right. I am going to do that. I'm going to show you. Okay. Thank you. Doc Wallach, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joel Wallach, look for him. Okay. And look for the Vital Health Nutrition. And I'm going to show it one more time here. If you have questions, go to 888-275-7755. Ask them any questions you might want. This is Alan Steinfeld for New Realities. And I know people said it was an MLM, but if you're getting nutrition that you need, it doesn't matter where they're coming from. Thank you for watching, and see you. Look for my new streams coming up. Thank you all for tuning in. And I think 4 p.m. today, we're doing another ET round.